24. We start our quote of the day, which comes from Nelson Mandela, and it says, "Education is the key to development." Coming up, Office of National Security and Police raised concern on social media incitement. President Bio hands over the chairperson position of the African Peer Review Mechanism to Central African Republic and South Sudan after 2 years. Bank of Sierra Leone approves Mohamed Alhaji Samora as Managing Director and CEO of UBA Sierra Leone. And Sierra Leone Land Alliance calls on newly established National Land Commission to find ways to address recommendations in a policy document to have lasting dispute resolution mechanism, mediation, negotiation on land disputes. All these issues, including your messages, to 0300737119. It's a podium. Welcome back to the podium. The chairperson of the African Peer Review Mechanism, President Julius Maada, yesterday chaired the 33rd summit of the APRM Forum of Heads of State and Government. The virtual meeting took place at State House that brought together different heads of state and other government authorities within the sub-region to take cognizance of the impressive results achieved by the continent Secretariat in 2023. President Bill served as chairperson for 2 years as APRM Governing Council of Heads of State. Yesterday officially handed over to South Sudan and African Republic. An MOU for Sierra Leone second generation review was also signed. Almost Hasmo.
Chief Executive Officer of the APRM, Eddie Maloka, commended President's bill for the warm hospitality accorded them and guardians provided for them to complete a 5-day leadership, including full second generation input for the Gambia and review Ghana on corporate governance and catalyst for the implementation of the continent on behavior, including Senegal on mineral resources, among other countries. He appreciated President Bio for the unique leadership he has provided for the APRM during his tenure.
Your Excellencies, the APRM has had a very good year in 2023, including the peer review of the country report of Niger and the targeted review report of Djibouti on fiscal decentralization that were completed by the Forum on 4 February last year, as well as peer review reports on 5 reviews on unconstitutional change of government at the High-Level Validation Summit on 7 February 2023. We also completed 5 review missions, Your Excellencies, including a full second-generation country review to Zambia, and also the targeted review to Ghana on corporate governance as a catalyst for the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area, to Senegal on mineral resources at the heart of the transformation of the Senegalese economy, to Mozambique on state resilience to natural disasters and food security, and to Togo on urban resilience, disasters, risk and adaptation measures. Your Excellencies, having participated in some of the field missions led by members of the panel, I can attest to the intellectual rigor, thoroughness and impartiality with which the reviews are completed by both the panel and members of the APRM teams at both continental and national levels.
President Julius Maada disclosed that when the idea of the APRM in the years of 2014 to 2016 seems to die down, its champion from civil society, academia, and non-profit sector remain confident about its promise, and we are never in doubt regarding its renewal. These paragons, Pan-Africanism and good governance, are worthy of their collective economy for their unwavering belief in the APRM. Throughout this year, they have witnessed political will for good governance across the continent, and they will no longer view good governance as a peripheral issue, but as the cardinal lens through which they measure policies' impact and the concrete amelioration of standards of living for the less fortunate individuals among them, he noted.
Despite the doubts in our commitment and ability to promote good governance, as leaders of this great continent, we have continued to demonstrate our ability to hold each other to account through our annual engagements to the findings of the independent, cogent, and participatory reviews which establish the facts of public life in our countries. It is true that apprehension characterized the mechanisms start in 2003. Indeed, the modalities, ownership, and funding of the APRM were ill understood by the majority of the continent. But gradually, by the power of example and through persistence, the APRM expanded and withstood all manner of operational challenges.
As those of the three targeted reviews on the underdevelopment of infrastructure, the underdevelopment of agriculture, and the non-responsive public service in Uganda will be presented by panel members, and they will subsequently have time to engage in the peer review of these reports. He commended Honorable Abdullahi Jane and his colleagues for their steadfastness in 2023 and wished Ambassador Inwengi Dikisuta Liwanika much success as she takes up the reins of the panel for the next 12 months.
It is necessary for this momentum to be maintained into the future. With the multiplicity of non-state actors, the spread of pathogens, and the increase in armed conflicts, our world's governance mechanisms have been severely tested and fallen short of humanity's most reasonable expectations. With adequate resources and sufficient political will, the APRM can shape not just Africa, but also global responses to common challenges.
After completing the presentation of the various reports, they will then discuss administrative matters, top of which is the recruitment of the next Chief Executive Officer of the Continental Secretariat. Other heads of state and administrative at the summit also made meaningful contributions. SABC TV News are in Freetown, Hawamosue reporting.
That was President Bio there chairing the 33rd summit of the APRM Forum of Heads of State and Government in Freetown. It was a virtual summit which took place at State House, where Sierra Leone, having served for 2 years as the APRM Governing Council head, the Central African Republic and South Sudan takes up that seat. The program you're watching is the Podium Live on the SLPs. Let's move on to another issue this afternoon. The Executive Director of Sierra Leone Land Alliance, John Paul Barry, has said that they're looking forward to engage the newly established National Land Commission on ways to address recommendations in a policy document the Alliance has developed in order to have a lasting dispute resolution mechanisms, mediation and negotiations on land disputes. He made a statement during.
And those documents, some of them are much more implementable to a point that we think government should have addressed those recommendations for time now. But we have seen a slow pace in terms of the implementation of those recommendations. And on a daily basis, we are being faced by affected landowners as to which way forward are we going in terms of the implementation of those recommendations. We have had personally an induction session with all of part of the affected landowners, so that they will know the content of the recommendations. And it may be interesting to know that during those days, 2 days session, not too many of them have really seen the report. And it was so surprising for them, firstly, that the report was done in secret, and it was only for the intervention of the Sierra Leone Land Alliance that had to force government for the publication of this report. And we came up with recommendations to the Ministry of Lands that they should try to establish a committee as per what the recommendations that are contained in the Military report. Yet we have yet to see that committee be established. But we are mindful of the fact that Dr. Turad has given responsibility to his deputy, the former Deputy Minister of Lands, who was Cisse Jones. He's now former. We met him and he told us that he had budgetary constraints, meaning there was no budget allocation for that exercise. So for us, it's a far cry. And we also had meeting because we organized an executive committee of the land affected owners. We met with the current Deputy Minister, Kapu, to intimate her about the report. And of course, she was aware of it. But yet, not much has been done. And we think there is need for government, especially the Ministry of Lands, now that we are looking at land reforms, we should take back those grievances and try to address them. If you don't address them, whatever we are talking about land reform will just be a far cry. So that's the reason why we say now we need to look at the new institution that has been created, the National Land Commission, because Part 11, Section 771 of the National Land Commission Act provides for the National Land Commission to establish a grievance redress mechanism. So we want to request the National Land Commission to take that provision and try to see how we can collectively, with the affected landowners, to look at how we can address those. And we know, of course, the ministry is doing some auctioning program. For some of the reclamation, it demands relocation. So we think if the minister, through the Ministry of Land, should come up with a policy design. We know they have come up with a policy regularization, but that policy regularization has not been used. Now we want to see how can we work with the National Land Commission to take those recommendations, meet with the affected landowners, and try to address them, because this is a policy of the president. He constituted the committee, and 4 years down the line, nothing has happened.
Yeah, but that's what the question I wanted to ask. 4 years down the line, has anything been done in relation to these recommendations?
Well, in fact, what I would say is unpicked. The greater majority of the affected landowners have not got back their land. Because the reason is clear that most of the land grabbers are politically connected individuals. In fact, you have serving ministers and ambassadors whose names were mentioned in the report. Yeah. So we see maybe that because of the snail pace implementation of those reports, because of that bottleneck. And it may shock you to know that one of your Director General, the late Director General of the SMBC, Jibo George, he has died now. He went to the office, he cried at the point in time when we were doing the induction exercise that he had served his country diligently. All of a sudden, we are, according to him, politicians will just come overnight and take his property. So he has gone now. So that kind of legacy, we don't want to say it. For people who have served well for this country, they have acquired their property only for some unscrupulous criminals to come and take away the property. I mean,
the brief title is saying agony of affected landowners, which means these are serious issues. How serious is such a situation? Because if you said agony is something that
they still, the affected landowners are still suffering from the pains. They have that trauma, because when the government constituted the committee, they thought that the government was very much serious in addressing their situation. And when the minister came into office, they thought he was that much serious to address their problem. And then on a daily basis, they visited the ministry, nothing comes out of that. So that kind of plight, that agony, the suffering that they have been met with, is a serious concern. So that is why we caption the policy brief that they are in with agony and they are seeking justice, because these are properties that they have earned over the years, and we think we are in a crossroad. Government now is looking at land reforms. We are aware of the tremendous work being done in the ministry, but yet we need to go back and see how do we address grievances that will spark. How can we collectively address?
I'll reference you to, for example, Pujon, the Sameleng issue. So for several years now, even when the company is operating, there are still grievances in relation to what people think that our land was forcefully taken from us. Even today, as the community could not coexist peacefully with the company.
You see, again, we are talking about political conspiracy. In 2018, when this current president came to power, he had to establish the same committee again to look at the Mali situation. And it may shock you that the report was given to him, and that report has never been published. So that tells you whether we have a very serious government in terms of addressing issues that borders around their citizens. So that's just the same concern. That's what we said. I mean, these issues around commissions of inquiry or committees to probe into affected issues will not solve the problem if you don't have committed individuals to take leadership in terms of putting up an implementation plan to see that, I mean, those plans are being going, they are budgeted for, and they go to the letter.
So issues of addressing issues of grievance during land disputes, it's merely like a lip service being given to it. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, because that is why we are suggesting that the National Land Commission should look at alternative dispute resolution mechanism. You know, because we got this from the registry of at World Civil. We met with SAPTU 3 years ago that cases do normally clog in courts as a result of delays. And we think we should have a mechanism by which, disputants will have their right to claims, and then they have their property back. So alternative dispute resolution, which we think will avoid litigation in court, will serve the purpose, because you have to bring the parties, and you have somebody who is much more independent, devoid of political leaders, that kind of thing, to address it. So that's why we say alternative dispute resolution should be the way to go. And because, the documents are there. Some of the claimants of those properties, those lands in the West area, they have all their title deeds. As opposed to these land grabbers, they don't have no document. And interesting that most of these land grabbers, in conspiracy with the lawyers and even with the police, they go to the Ministry of Land, they go to Roxybili, and then they register instruments and no titles. And that's where the problem lies. Because the titles will give you who the actual landowner is, how the property is being bought. And when you go to court again, you see the lot of delays, magistrate courts, high courts, Supreme Court, a lot of delays. So we want to avoid that. And that's the reason why we have one of our brief looking at how do we work with the Office of the Chief Justice to ensure that we have a specialized court, like the circuit court, so that we have a land tribunal that will take not more than a month or two to address all land disputes. Because we are tired with land conflicts.
Okay, so finally, before you go, how would you think this policy brief could help? Because, like you mentioned, 4 years down the line, committees were set up, recommendations were made, but like you mentioned, it was handpicked because maybe it could favor maybe the people are within the system. But do you think this policy brief could help, could further address the issues?
Well, the point is, we are departing from the Ministry of Lands and now taking the matter of responsibility to the National Land Commission, because it is new, and we hope it remains independent as per the Constitution. And we know that there are constitutional provisions which demand that the legal affairs commissioner who is being appointed in that office will be impartial and will establish a redress mechanism within his department to address this conflict. We are very